You gotta not let your internal voices sabotage your own results and talk you out of achieving great things. Driven Mofos, welcome back to another episode of The Underestimated Entrepreneur. Today we are talking about those damn internal voices that most people have that talk them out of getting great results. This is something that so many people have that they just let go crazy. Okay, they've got no self-control of their own internal voices, and it's not their fault. It's just that we live in a society that is an attention-grabbing society. Right now, attention wins the game. So the more people that can get attention, the more they win the game. And when we look at platforms like TikTok, you can just keep scrolling through until something grabs your attention, and you can scroll and scroll and scroll, and you're wiring your brain to just go crazy. And so this drives us into a part of the brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is the center of our emotions. And so it looks for immediate gratification. But the problem with immediate gratification is that it leads to pain. And this is part of what's known as the pain and pleasure cycle in psychology. And most people don't realize that pain normally leads someone to drive towards pleasure. And most people's pleasure leads back to pain. So they end up in this thing called a vicious cycle. And it just stops them from achieving great results because they self-sabotage, they self-destruct, they procrastinate, they hesitate, they let fears start to build in their mind. They start stressing about time because they've wasted so much. So they try to make it back by, try to win quick. They're doing everything quick because they're afraid that they're wasting all this time. But normally they fuck up those results because they're just doing things that don't really make sense, or they haven't really thought them through, or they haven't really planned effectively. And so most people are just living life by trial and error, letting these fears and worries consume their mind. And because of that, it prevents them from getting the results that they want. Anyway, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Michael Mojo. I'm the founder of Mojo Human Performance Institute, where we focus on business, mindset, and lifestyle hacking for driven mofos. And the reason why I do these episodes is that most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them. This is just such a common pattern that I see, where so many people have these massive goals and these massive dreams, and they'll tell me when I'm speaking to them, this is what I want to achieve. I'm sick of these patterns, these problems. I've had them for years. But then when it comes to executing, they normally let fears, worries, stresses, concerns, what might go wrong in the future, all consume their mind, and they worry about everything else apart from just the execution of the results that they want. Now, this limits a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, which allows us to plan effectively, to future think, and also to govern our emotions. So the more we're in our prefrontal cortex, the more we can govern our emotions and not let our emotions make us super reactive. And most people are super reactive because they keep reinforcing their emotions, and those emotions are like a huge pendulum that swing from one side to the other side. So most people look for immediate gratification. They look for excitement. They look for thrills. They look for joys. They look for things that make them euphoric. And so, whether they eat chocolate and it makes them feel good in the moment, but then an hour afterwards, they're feeling like shit and beating the crap out of themselves and hating upon themselves. And so this huge pendulum swings back and forwards, and it just leads to these volatile, vicious cycles, which then reinforce themselves in a person's mind. And the more pain that somebody's in, the more they seek pleasure. The more stressed the person is, the more they look for immediate gratification. And most people don't realize that these huge pendulum swings are happening inside their own mind. Then this builds up the self-talk. You're a loser, you're a piece of shit, you don't get anywhere. Why don't I have the results that I want? Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe it's the world around me, maybe it's the economy. And so most people then start to justify why they're not getting the results that they want. They start complaining. They start blaming other things outside of themselves. They start making excuses. And all it does is it just reinforces that pendulum swing, because the more time they waste, the more stress they get, and off this fucking pendulum goes over and over and over again. The way to get out of this is you have to start setting effective goals. And the way that you set effective goals is, first of all, to get really, really clear with your mission. And this is why I drive home this so hard at our Thrive Time event. Because without a clear mission, it's hard to set effective goals. Because if you don't know the direction that you're heading in, it is extremely hard to set effective goals. But if you know the direction that you're going in, the goals are stop-off points to make sure that you're on the right track to achieving a great life and where you really want to go. Also, you've got values and purpose in there, and I've mentioned this a lot in the podcast so far. But if we want to stop those internal voices, we really have to get clear with that mission so we can set effective goals. Then when we set effective goals, we can then start to plan out our week in advance. And when we set out our week in advance, we can start to put in, I guess you can fill out your calendar with time slots. So I call them block time. You can essentially block out your time to achieve the things you want to achieve. If you're not putting the things that you want to achieve in your calendar, they are not goals, they are just Fantasies. And most people live off of fantasies. They'll say shit like, "Oh, I should go to the gym." Well, if it's not in your calendar, you ain't going to the gym. The chances of that happening are very, very low. And what tends to happen is that most driven people, now I assume that the majority of people who are listening to this are driven mofos. What will happen is you will have too much to do in the time available, which then will stress you out, overwhelm you, and normally cause large amounts of anxiety and eventually lead to someone shutting down or just running around like an absolute idiot and stressing all the time or having huge amounts of anxiety and heart palpitations and all the crazy shit that a lot of driven people have. That's normally because they take on too much in the time available. Whereas when you go to your calendar and you set time aside, you then have to decide what's really important versus what's not important. And so, like, I know for me, I think that I can achieve like 10 times more than what I actually can most weeks. But when I go to my calendar and I book everything in, I go, okay, well, what's really the priority here? Like this week for me, my exercise and my nutrition has been a high priority for me for the last couple of weeks or the last month or so. Just because I started putting on a bit of a winter coat, it's time to lose it, time to get back into the gym. So I'm making sure I'm booking out an hour and a half for a good solid training session every day, 7 days a week. I go on, I book it in my calendar. And it is a non-negotiable. That means that I don't negotiate with myself. That's the fucking time. And this is what most people do is they go, "Oh, it's a non-negotiable," but then they let themselves negotiate with themselves. You know, "Oh, it's too late," or "It's too early," or "I went to bed last night and a bit too late and I didn't get a good sleep," and maybe I didn't eat properly today, so I'll skip a gym session. Or, people negotiate that bullshit with themselves all the time. And that's why they're not getting the results that they want. And that's causing their mental and internal chaos. So it's time to stop that. Go to your calendar, book in that exercise time. And that's what I've been doing this week. But that's what I do every Sunday night. I just set up my week in advance. Then what I'll do is I look at key things that I need to achieve in our business. So I'll go back and I'll have a look at our OKRs or our goals for the business for the next 90 days. Then I go and figure out how much time do I need to block in each of those times. Now, sometimes projects run over time. So I reset my goal. Now, here's a little giveaway. You should chunk your day into different blocks. So I have early morning, mid-morning, lunchtime or around lunchtime. Then I have early afternoon, late afternoon. Then I have early evening and late evening. And what that does is it allows me to block my time out in those chunks or in those categories. So that way, if I have a shitty early morning, that doesn't mean that I need to have a shitty day. Now, most people have a shitty day because they tend to reflect on the whole day instead of reflecting on a block of time. So I can wake up in the morning, be a bit groggy, feel a bit, shitty, things aren't planned properly, and I feel a bit chaotic. But that doesn't mean anything because the block time finishes at 9 a.m. And so in between 9 and 12, I can get back on track and be super effective again in between that next block. I can turn it around really, really quickly. Whereas most people get caught up in their head and negotiate again their day because if they have a shitty morning, they end up just writing off the whole day and they go, "I'll start again tomorrow, or I'll do something different tomorrow." But they've wasted a whole day. And even most people by lunchtime, if they've had a shitty morning, they'll write off the whole day and go, "Well, I'll just do something better tomorrow." That is a really ineffective way of living. So block time your time out. If you have an ineffective early morning, get back on track mid-morning so that then you can have an effective mid-morning. Then have an effective around about lunchtime, depending on what you want to do. If it's going out for a work meeting, make sure you set up the purpose of that meeting. So you're not just going out shooting the shit with people, wasting a heap of time. Know what the outcome is or the productivity that you're trying to create out of that meeting. Then you set your early afternoon up. Then you set your late afternooning up. And sometimes projects will cross over for multiple blocks, and that's fine. But you just want to reassess every about 3 hours, reassess in case you're off track, you just get back on track and you keep going. So what you really need to do to make sure that you're winning and not have that crazy volatile mindset that throws you off track is get really, really clear on your mission. Get really, really clear with your goals and what you're trying to achieve, especially over the next 90 days or even 30 days. Then from there, block it down into week blocks. So every Sunday night or every Monday morning, set your week up in advance by blocking out all your time. So there shouldn't be empty space in your calendar. Empty space causes chaos and you will fill that time with bullshit. The reason why I don't get caught up in bullshit most weeks is because I don't have empty space in my calendar. So when the team come to me and say there's all these problems, I'm like, well, you're going to have to fix it because I don't have time to fix it. And then so they've got to be responsible for fixing those problems, not me because I don't have the time. If it's urgent and if it's chaotic, then I'll jump in there and fix it up. But I have to then go back, reconfigure my calendar and figure out where I'm going to fit stuff, what I need to miss out on. I'm always reconfiguring my calendar. So every day I might reconfigure my calendar 4, 5, 6, 7 times, just depending on what's happening. If something urgent comes up, I reconfigure my calendar so I can get back on track. Because if not, I end up chaotic in my own mind, going around, creating excuses, dramatizing bullshit, getting caught in my emotions, and then I'm not getting the results that I want, and that sucks. And the more you set yourself up to lose in life, the more chaotic your mind is going to be. Whereas if you are absolutely cranked all day, you don't have time to even think about your emotions, how you're feeling, all of that sort of shit. You just get stuff done. And it's probably one of the best things because at the end of the day, you feel super proud, you feel like you've achieved a lot, and you know that you go to bed at nighttime and you're actually tired because you worked hard, not that you're tired because you're emotionally burnt out from being stuck in your head all day, driving your emotions fucking crazy, and then just feeling like shit and melting down, which is what most people do. So I would rather be tired because I was productive than be tired because I'm mentally and emotionally burnt out. And that's how most people live in our society. And by the way, you'll have more energy if you're tired from working hard. That's why I can't understand how lazy and unproductive people can be lazy and unproductive, because it's one of the most destructive things that you can do mentally, emotionally, and physically. Someone who wants an easy day or tries to look for shortcuts all the time, it's the fastest way to destroy your self-worth, your self-love, your self-respect, your dignity, all of those things. Your mental health will suffer. If you see someone who is super productive, very, very rarely do they have a chaotic mind because they don't have time for that shit. And if they do, they normally have time to reflect, and it's upon that reflection that they end up with a chaotic mind. And if they've got the right tools, then they can work through them. I go through a lot of that stuff at Thrive Time. I've spoken about this stuff before, but you can go back and listen to some of the other podcasts and listen about the ways and the tools and the methods that we do that stuff instead of a lot of the stuff that's out on the market that I don't really think works that effectively. But anyway, Driven Mofos, I hope this helps. Also, a massive shout out to everyone who's been rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. It's been absolutely cranking. Every week, numbers keep going up. So I really do appreciate each and every one of you. It's awesome to be part of a community of driven mofos who want more out of life, who want more out of themselves, and who want to live the best and most epic life they can because life's short. So thank you very much, everyone who has been out there rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. Anyway, have a great day, Driven Mofos. Keep crushing it.